Hello, everybody. Today we'll be reading The Odd Ones Out, How to Be Cool, and Other Things I Definitely Learned from Growing Up. New York Times bestseller by James Rollison, aka The Odd Ones Out. Part 10, Chapter 8, Science Fair. I think we can all agree that schools make you learn a lot of useless stuff. People usually go to complaint. People's usual go-to complaint about school is that we have to learn math. They'll say things like, "When will I ever use algebra / geometry / calculus in the real world?" But why do so many people immediately point their finger at math? I'm guessing because they're bad at algebra, geometry, and calculus / calculus. When will / ever have to use... Wait, it's not supposed to read an I. When will I ever have to use the things I learned in English class, like Shakespeare or iambic pentameter? I don't even know what that is. Once in 5th grade, my teacher called me to her desk, pointed to a spot in my homework, and said, "I asked you to write 4 methods. The Hopi Indians used to dry farm their fields. You only wrote 2. Is she serious? My first... Oh my... Oh, I hate my... My first thought was well. Thank goodness I'm not a Hopi Indian dry farmer. I only know 50% of what they did. And why does it even matter anymore? We have technology now. I bet the Hopi farmers today use sprinklers. So this isn't a problem I worry about. I didn't actually say all that. And to tell you the truth, I've forgotten the 2 ways of dry farming I did put down. So that just shows how much I learned. I'm guessing water and some types of soils are involved. But this chapter is about the school assignment that I hated the most. The science fair. Once I was talking to my friend Jaden. Oh, is that Jaden Animations? Probably not. About how much school science fairs suck. And she said, "Oh, at my school, we didn't do the science fair." That got me wondering whether other people had suffered through a science fair before, so I did my own science experiment. I ran a Twitter poll and asked if people had to do the science fair during school and whether they enjoyed doing it. Of the 8,500 people who responded, 58% said that they didn't have to do a science fair, which was way more than I expected. I've renamed this group the Lucky Ones. What's the science fair? Of those who did the science fair, when asked whether they enjoyed it, 21% said they did. I'll call these people the nerds. And 21% said they didn't. I know Twitter polls aren't the most accurate source of data, but I think it's safe to say this issue is pretty evenly split. I'm in the 21% of people who didn't enjoy the science fair. Don't get me wrong, I love science. Well, that may not be completely true. I hated biology. It was just memorizing vocabulary words. Mitochondria, carbohydrate, glucose, blah, 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 blah. And chemistry, that was just a mess. Chemistry added even more vocabulary words and then tried to throw in math on top of everything else. And for some reason, the periodic table was there too. Fun fact about my AP chemistry class. At the start of the year, there was an even amount of boys and girls in the class. But then as the year went on, all the boys dropped the class until the end of the year. I was the only boy left, which just goes to show you that chemistry is totally a ladies' club. The only reason I passed chemistry was because I got some extra credit points, which just meant the teacher didn't want to have to teach me again. Here's 2 points, now get out. The only useful thing I did in that class was come up with the name for the comic I was going to create that summer. The odd one's out. I thought physics was okay. I don't like physics because I have to do a bunch of math too. It was a good balance of math and vocabulary. It really made me think about serious stuff like, what would happen if I let go of this? Well, then it would just fly out because it would be not 10. And actually, wait, no, never mind. On second thought, maybe I don't like science. Maybe I just liked watching the Magic School Bus and Bill Nye the Science Guy. Whoa, whoa! I love Bill. Anyway, let me briefly go over what the science fair is for. You lucky ones who didn't have to do it. We started working on the science fair projects around 4th grade and did them every year up until 10th grade. Everyone in the class would spend a lot of time researching a topic that interested them. And then we all had to come up with a question about the topic and the topic that we could base an experiment on. Here are the sorts of questions we chose. Does the temperature of a battery affect how long it will last? What color light produces the most heat? Well, I mean, that should be obvious. How does the shape of the rocket fins affect its Oh, well, that's also pretty obvious. All of those were projects I did. The science fair was supposed to teach us about the scientific method, but all it really taught me was to procrastinate and make up data. Sorry. The rocket thing is really easy. Most of it is pretty easy. You might think, oh, but the science fair sounds like fun. I wish my school did them. No! Here were some of the flaws of the science fair. First, we got the option to work with a partner. Working with a partner sounds like a good idea because you can split up the work and not do as much. Now, since I didn't have any friends in 4th grade, I partnered up with someone no one else wanted to be with. Unfortunately, he didn't do any of the work. He just blew off his part of the assignment. That was enough to keep me from wanting to partner with anyone on anything ever again. The second problem was the science fair was that we had to come up with a question to investigate all on our own. And you have to understand, we were just kids. We didn't exactly have the cognitive abilities that scientists have.